Welcome to the LA Business Podcast, your destination to hear stories of how businesses grow and scale. I'm Robert Brill, CEO of BrillMedia.co and the host of this podcast. Now, let's jump right into this week's interview. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the LA Business Podcast. Today, our guest is Sifu, Thommy, Luke Boehlig. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You have quite a repertoire of work that you've done, and I want to do a brief introduction. You're a writer and author, world-renowned martial artist, keynote speaker, instructor of military and police units. Tell us about everything that's going on with you, and tell us about the Sifu. Tell us about everything. Just tell us.
Oh my goodness! All right, it's going to be a long interview.
Yeah.
I am the martial arts guy. I've practiced martial arts pretty much my whole life. I'm 44 years old, and I started like 40 years ago. I live in Germany, but I run a multinational business. I teach the martial art of Wing Chun. Some of you guys may be familiar with it. If you have heard about Bruce Lee, I'm pretty sure you've heard about Wing Chun. It's a Chinese martial art. It's very direct, very effective, quite brutal. So it's an effective way of defending yourself, even if you are not extremely physically built or strongly built. And so I turned this into, I only have high school education, and which gave me the chance to being thrown into the cold waters at the age of 18 and just started trying to promote my school. But I had no idea how to do that. And so it took me a long time and many conversations with many people and lots of testing and tweaking and stuff like that to find a way of how to actually turn this into a business that works. And up until, today, actually, I run 80 schools, or my team runs 80 schools in 15 countries. So outside of COVID, I'm usually on an airplane quite often to a distant land in order to do some seminars. So we have our schools, we have our martial arts schools, but we also do a lot of training with a variety of police units and military units. I'm a tutor at the police academy in Colombo, Sri Lanka, for example, where I go once a year, and one of my representatives goes there every week to teach the police trainers over there. There are hostage rescue teams in Brazil that we teach, such as BOPE. Some of you guys may have heard of them, and so it's quite interesting. And also how this actually...
Let's take a step back here for a moment, because
Sure.
There's a lot, 80 branches in 15 countries. Yeah. How did you get from having a high school education to running this international corporation? It seems like a lot of, I'm running a small team of 10 people here, and it's a ton of work. How do you do this across political borders and across countries and across different languages? Tell us about that.
Well, first of all, it really just was myself. It was only me and my love for the martial arts. And so for that's the core of pretty much everything that I was doing. And the Wing Chun system is based on 4 principles. Loosely translated, the first principle is the way clear, go forward. So you learn how to be proactive and to go forward and not to look back, and how to deal with setbacks and stuff like that. Second one is, if you encounter resistance, stick. So obviously, first thing that happens if you don't have a clue about what you do is you run into an obstacle, and you learn how to feel where that obstacle is, and also maybe how to feel if there's a gap somewhere, and how you can use that gap for your advantage, which is where the third concept kicks in. And that's the concept of if the opponent is too strong, yield. So you look for intelligent ways of how to actually find a way to get your goal. And then finally, when the opponent retreats, follow him. So you go forward full throttle. So this is the only thing that I had in the beginning, just my passion for the martial arts and these few principles. And I was lucky to meet a number of people in the United States and in the UK who were running some successful martial arts businesses, and they were kind enough to share their knowledge with me. And I just started with one school and then opened another one. And then I slowly built up some assistants and was able to give the one of the schools to them so that I could free myself to open yet another one. And so it kind of happened organically in the beginning, but it took me a long time to back in the time over here in Germany, there were not a lot of professionally run schools. So it was very hard for me to find mentors. So I always had to, just hop across the pond in order to find somebody who was able to actually give me some advice. And so it took me a long time to get some ideas of how I could actually scale this whole thing. I started attending personal development seminars. Tony Robbins is one of the guys that I like very much. And dealing with these kind of things and attending automobile university, as Zig Ziglar calls it, like driving your car, always having an audiobook running while you do that, that really helped me immensely. And I really started loving this phone over here with the recording option, because every time there was something that I learned, I would just put it down in there and then make sure that I just tried it out. A lot of people, they know so much, they hear so much, but they don't implement it. And with me, it was the other way around. I hear something, I try it out. Most of the time I failed, but at least I was able to see what worked and what didn't work. And that gradually led to another school, and then another school, and yet another school. And since my love was always for the martial arts, which is something very visual, we started using Facebook and YouTube for our promotion. And that's when people from other styles, from other Wing Chun families, other Wing Chun lineages and styles saw my stuff and said, hey, it looks pretty interesting what you're doing. Would you be interested in doing a seminar over here in Brazil, in Sri Lanka, in the United States, and wherever? And this is normally how it started. They either would come over here, or they would invite me over to do a seminar in their school, and then we would begin with a cooperation, which was quite nice. All of that being said, we were only a conglomerate of schools, but we were not really a business. So I really had to learn methods, how to really scale this whole thing and put some kind of corporate structure under it, if you will, to make sure that not just me, but also my students and future school owners will be able to live from what they do, make a living from their martial arts school and, be successful at that.
So what kind of timing are we looking at here? What year are you first doing this in terms of like with the school, and like what are the cadences that what are the key points or the key milestones that you experienced and you're like, okay, wow, there's some traction here. Holy cow, this is doing better than I ever thought it would. Holy cow, we're just going crazy right now. Tell us about some of those milestones. And I'm really interested in some of I want to learn. Those milestones to me are fascinating because I think it's really interesting that I can tell you from personal experience, recognizing when those milestones are happening are exhilarating and scary, completely scary.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, well, over here in Germany, it's like this. You attend high school, for example, and then you have the choice of either attending something that's called Gymnasium, which is it's almost like a college, if you will. And then after this, you can choose to either go to university and then work in that field that you'd study there for a while, or you attend high school, then you graduate, and then you take a job. And this is usually, you usually take a job training, which takes anywhere between 2 years and 3 years until you actually get out in the marketplace. So I started a job training and I absolutely hated every second of it. I went home crying, really hated it. And the first milestone for me was actually the day when I said, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I know that there's a calling. There's something that I want to do. There's something that I should do. That's something that I have to do. And I'm not going to be able to help people the way that I'm doing it right now. I would like to teach people how to be able to protect themselves and follow my passion. Those were the two main components. I wanted to help people, and I knew that I was not going to be able to do that in the job that I was trapped in. And the second one was I wanted to be free and be able to do to actually follow my passion. So the first milestone for me was like, oh wow, okay, so I'm actually free to do what I want to do right now. So how do I make money right now? So I was free. I did have a lot of time, but I didn't have any money. So I started working as a bouncer for a number of years, and I did a bodyguard training and worked as a bodyguard for a high Buddhist priest and also a cardinal from the Papal Council at the Vatican for a while, which was great, wonderful experience. But I still had those money problems, and I started working as, I was a bartender. I was a waiter. I did a lot of things. and the money I put into my Wing Chun, into my martial arts training again. So the second milestone was when I was actually able to let any of these side jobs go and only focus on this. I was still not really able to make ends meet, but at least I had reached like a point where the expenses didn't overbear what I was making. So that was cool, and it gave me a little bit more freedom to breathe, so to speak. And then when I started opening the next school and the next school and the next school, it wasn't really so much for me to know that I have a certain amount of money on my account, but it was like, oh, wow, look, this person that I'm teaching, he's actually able to make a living from that too. That's really cool. So maybe there's something for other people in here as well. And at the same time, I'm able to grow my business. So he could be a helper. So this was another milestone for me where I was like, okay, this is really cool. Not only am I able to do what I love and make a living from that, but somebody else's too. And then a lot of these things were like, it's when you really focus on your work and you focus on what you love so much, at least that's me. I don't really care too much about the money will come if you do what you love, and it is something that you do with passion, then you normally do it good as well, and you normally do it well if it's something that you really love.
And you just have the interest to keep doing it.
Yeah,
if you don't love what you're doing, you're just going to eventually stop when times get difficult.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and it keeps you motivated. I don't really need somebody to kick me out of bed every morning. I'm up at 5 and I'm here at the office for my first workout at 6 in the morning, and I just love that stuff.
And you're recording this podcast and it's 8 o'clock.
Oh, look at that. Yeah, exactly. It's true. It's 8 o'clock over here. But to me, I always wanted to be able to travel. I wanted to be able to experience new culture, meet new people, eat new food, strange food. And when I looked back and I was like, wait a minute, do we actually have schools in 10 countries right now? And there's this other guy inquiring from that country and another one from that country. These were the things that how I measured success. Not so much on the financial side, which is great too, but it was really on me being able to help more people get safe and confident and strong and stuff, even in another culture, even with a different religious background, even with a different language and stuff. That was something that keeps firing me up like crazy, even until today.
So let's go right ahead. Sorry, continue your thought.
Okay. So this is what, as far as my martial arts journey is concerned, this is what has always been firing me up. What was interesting though, was that this passion for martial arts took me into the speaker sector, for example, when all of a sudden business networks like BNI and other ones started to invite me, and they were like, hey, you know what? We just heard that you only have high school education, but how do you manage to actually build a multinational organization that way? There must be some underlying principles. Would you be interested in coming over and talking about that? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? So I started with a 10-minute speech. And then after the 10-minute speech, they were like, no, carry on. Very fascinating indeed. And every time I spoke somewhere, other people came up to me. And all of a sudden, people started offering me money for speaking about what I do. And then I developed a whole speech, a whole program. I created an audiobook that I put out on Audible, German Audible, and I'm writing a book at the moment. And so this thing just kept growing organically. It's kind of difficult for me to say what those triggers were. It's just like every time I did something, other people come up to me and they were like, this is very interesting. Why don't you talk about that on our podcast and at our convention? I just spoke at NASA's Ecosystem 2030 this about 3 months ago.
What do you talk about with NASA? Like, what are the types of things you discuss with NASA?
Well, Ecosystems 2030 defines the future as far as technology is concerned. In a variety of fields. So they bring in experts from different fields, also from the martial arts or from athletics, and they look at what is going to happen as far as technology is concerned in these fields. So when I spoke there, it was in the middle of the pandemic, and people were scared shitless, obviously. So it was my job to talk about security and stability in times of change. There are three major pillars that I address when I do this seminar. One of them is, I know everybody talks about pivoting right now, but I think first of all, before we think about pivoting something in our business, we have to make sure that we protect the things that are dear and important to us at the moment, our core customers, our team, our finances, and stuff like that. And once we have that secured, the second pillar kicks in, and that is to pivot, to see what kind of things still work during this pandemic, while others that were normally our bread and butter don't work at the moment. So what can we do right now? What are the things that still work? What are the things that don't work at the moment? What are the things that would work if we would give it a shot right now? And heck, what are the things that wouldn't work even if we would put the time and work in there? I think this is something that's most people don't ask. They just have this idea for a project and they think, hey, let's just go for it. But they don't do the math and they don't think what are the odds of this actually succeeding? And then the third one is to actually set yourself up for success after the pandemic, like embracing technology the way that we have it right now. And I just like half an hour ago before this call, I just got off my Wing Chun Masterclass. I teach people at the moment today. There were people from 8 different countries via Zoom in the martial arts, which is something that I would never have seen doing myself like maybe 2, 3, 4 years ago. So embracing technology and embracing the internet and not being scared of it. These are the things that I spoke about during the NASA event, for example.
Amazing. What I'm going to do, I'm just typing up a comment here. Not a comment, but a question. Give me just a moment to get it on screen. I really focus on what business owners should be doing right now to thrive. It seems like we're emerging out of a COVID fog. For the last 9 months. Vaccines are rolling out as we're recording this across the world, which is incredibly good news. Tell us, what are you telling business owners regarding COVID, regarding sustainability, being successful?
I think we are in a very, very, very unique spot when it comes to using the internet, when it comes to using services like Zoom and so on. There is so much stuff that you can do right now. Even if you're not really particularly technology savvy. What you can do, for example, there's YouTube, right? And there it offers you a number of tutorials for pretty much everything. If you want to learn how to build a website, you can do that now. You can do that there. If you go to Weebly.com, to Wix.com, or other websites, it's super, super easy, even for somebody who's not really tech savvy, to come up with a website. There are designing programs. There's Fiverr.com, where you have experts of a variety of fields who give you professional services, how to make a business card, how to create a website, how to create a leaflet, a flyer, how to do voiceover for you, how to create an infomercial for you and stuff like that. So we live in a time where it's never been this easy and this cheap, this inexpensive to get help from professionals in these fields. So I've never been as busy, I've never been as creative as I am right now. In the martial arts, you would think, hey, this is something that's hand to hand. You have to have your instructor right in front of you. And this couldn't be further from the truth, but this was my conviction for the last 20 years. And now all of a sudden I find myself in front of Zoom conversing with, 60, 70 people from different countries who are in front of a camera with their training partner, while I'm in front of the camera with my training partner. And we teach them stuff using Zoom, and I can see what they do and I can correct them. And so I think the main thing right now is make use of the technology that is there. Do not be afraid to ask for help on these platforms, to type in what you're interested in, and you will get answers. And this really goes for pretty much all niches. I'm in a mastermind class where we have people who sell huge hammers, sledgehammers that they use in quarries, for example. We have people who are coaches. We have people who are doctors. We have people who run ad agencies. And these are things that pretty much go for everybody, because everybody should have their website to promote their business in the local community. And it's insane how many local businesses don't even have a website. They have never heard of search engine optimization and stuff like that. And I think it is very easy to hide from these things and how to be afraid of that, whereas embracing it would do us so much good.
So what's interesting to me, there's a few things. Number one, with regards to Zoom, I love it. Our business is fully work from home by design. So when this happened, it was like business as usual in terms of how we operate. Certainly clients and marketers were having challenges, and in the live entertainment space and whatnot.
Mm.
But what's interesting to me is like the psychology of people has changed over the last 9 months. Think about telehealth, for example. I was listening to a podcast. I think the podcast I was listening to is called Pivot with Scott Galloway and Kara Swisher. Great podcast, by the way. And, they're saying like, it's crazy that, doctors can knock out so many different telehealth calls, meetings, appointments in a day. And it takes you 15, 20, 30 minutes rather than both the doctor and the patient taking 2 hours out of your day to drive over, to wait in the waiting room, to come back, the whole thing. The whole work, like we can get so much done right now and it's so much more efficient. I think one of the biggest, and you totally touched on this, which is you have the resources available to you. Now it's how do you package them in a way that really fits your personal culture and your DNA, your business's culture, and that serves your customers. Is a core idea of what you're saying really here, be resourceful, use what you have available to you? Like, tell us a little bit more about the core messages of what you're talking about in these master classes.
That's exactly what it is. Don't be afraid and be open to change. Be open to this, what's coming. It's not like we can't do anything about it. It's there. So we might as well make use to it to our advantage, I think. So that's pretty much it. I don't know if there's a bottom line, but what it really is to me is be open, be interested, be excited, and just go ahead and embrace the technology that is there right now.
And how long have you had this masterclass running?
We just started. Today was our second session. We started 3 weeks ago.
So I love that. I love how you're able to like really go in and just be like, all right, I'm doing this because I have the skills and capabilities to do this. How long did it take you to prepare? Like when was that initial seed of a thought? Like, okay, I'm going to do a masterclass. When was that? And when did you actually start marketing and start running your first masterclass? How long did that take?
Actually, I had the idea like 4 weeks ago, and 3 weeks ago, a website was done. I was finished with this thing, ready to go. Then a week later, we had a professional video taken, and then we had the first class. And today we had the second class. We do that every other week. It's so fast, and that's what I mean. It's not rocket science. And you can, even if you don't have people on your team who can do these kind of things, go to Fiverr or some website like that, and you will get this in a very, very, very good quality for not a lot of money.
I think so. Do you think that there are certain people or certain types of people who are predisposed to successes in this type of environment? And the reason I ask that is because everything that we're talking about right now, to me, seems logical and obvious, right? Like I'm experimenting with live streaming. This is my third live stream that I've done. It all started this week, and I just said one day I'm going to do it. However, there are business owners and there are entrepreneurs and there are challenges with just doing. Yeah. Right. The challenges with just doing are, I don't know where to start. I get lost in the muck and the mire. The ad tech component or the marketing tech component is so dramatically challenging. How do you frame up the opportunity and help those people who have the desire to do it, but they get lost in the details? How do you help those people?
I think first of all, it has a lot to do with if you actually grew up with technology or not. Mm-hmm. And that's nobody's fault. It just depends on when you were born and the kind of environment that you were raised in. So there's nobody's to blame when it comes to this. And I think it's completely normal for human beings to be nervous about change and about things that we don't feel comfortable with. What I like to do is I really like to weigh out my options, and I'd like to do something that I call clustering. When I talk about clustering, what I mean is that I look at the projects that I'm interested in. And let's say I have project number 1 here. Then I have the target group that I'm looking at, and then I have the distribution method. And then I play with this. Let's say my project that I'm interested in promoting right now would be self-defense. And the target group that I have would be people interested in self-defense or children interested in self-defense. And the distribution method would be Zoom. And I would not feel very comfortable using Zoom. Then I come up with another cluster, and then with another cluster where I only change one of these components here. For example, if the project would still be self-defense course, then maybe I don't feel very comfortable teaching children, so I would change this to adults or to police officers or to bodyguards or to whatever. And here I may change this to in-person training, one-to-one individual training, Zoom classes, privates, and stuff like that. Now, when you come up with a number of these clusters and you keep switching them around and around and around until you find something that you really feel at home with, and the last part that I do is I actually write the odds in here. Like, let's say if I teach children, and I think that the odds are that it's 80% of probability that this leads to success, whatever you define success may be, then I'm going to go with this. This helps me to take away a lot of fear because it helps me fire myself up, if that makes any sense.
So one moment. So clustering, target audience, distribution, and what's the third circle? The product?
Yeah, you have the project or the product, then you have the target audience, and then you have the distribution method. Yes. And you can change those around the whole time. So you could come up with 25 clusters with the same project, and you only change the distribution method, for example. And then you come up with another 25 or 30 clusters where you change the offering. So it's not self-defense anymore, but maybe it's a fitness class in my case. And I use the method or the cluster that I feel the most comfortable with, which gives me emotional juice. And the more emotional juice I have, the more motivated I am, and the less scared I am of taking the first step, because I think fear is pretty much the main reason why people don't jump into action. Yeah,
so that's really interesting. So you're really saying, look, I wanna put that on paper, everything that I think is relevant for this project. You have a system or a template, a framework in which to think about it. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, okay, what do I feel? What in my soul makes me feel the best? Which method? That's great.
As long as it's in your head, it's scary because you look at this huge mountain of things to do, and you're not sure if to go with option number 1 or option number 2 or option number 3. I understand that this scares people, but putting it onto paper, getting it out of your head and putting it onto paper, that actually makes it feasible, because you go, okay, you know what? I can cross out this option because it's not going to work. No, I can cross out this option because I'm not tech savvy enough. I can cross out this option because I don't think these people are going to be interested in this kind of project. And then you just really go with the thing that feels right, and with the thing where you think that the odds are for you, that the probability is high that you can actually achieve your success that way. To me, it makes me feel at ease because I've taken the first step, which is to really put it on paper and get it out of my head, and getting a clear path, beginning a clear path. And another thing is that once you do this, I would recommend that you only do it for 90 days. So let's say you have 3 clusters, and one of them has an 80% probability of success. One has a 30%. And one has a 70% probability. Then you go with the one that says 80% for only 1 quarter, only for 90 days. Another reason why a lot of people are scared is because they think, oh my goodness, if I put all my effort and all my money and all my work and all my time into this project, but if it's not the right kind of project, what am I going to do? And this may take away a little bit more fear, because you only do this for 90 days. And after these 90 days, you will see, is it successful or is it not successful? If it is successful, you just carry on with it. If it's not, you just move on to the second most probable target. So if you have one that had 80%, another one that had 70%, and one that had a 30% probability of leading to success, you go with the 80 first, then with the 70, and then with the 30. Yeah. And you only do it for 90 days. So because then you will have a clear picture. Where is this going? Is this actually leading anywhere, or am I just treading water here? Maybe this helps.
It absolutely does. I liked how you call it chunking initially as well, because I think the big challenge also is when you don't have a time frame for success. Mm-hmm. That also makes things unclear.
Yes,
I think what I know, whatever it is, whether it's a diet, whether it's work, whether it's a project, whatever the thing is, if I know that I get to end it successfully or unsuccessfully in 90 days, 90 days isn't that big of a deal. But if I think the challenge is, some people think about this like it's gonna, I think, two things. Number one, I think some people think it's going to be the rest of their lives that they're going to be doing this, and nothing lasts forever. No career does, no job, no project, none of that.
But that's what it feels like.
Yeah. And then secondly, like as an entrepreneur, like I am sure your job, your role, the types of things that you do on a day-to-day basis changes dramatically when you look at the scope of years.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Oh, absolutely.
So I think the challenge is, I think a lot of people who are employees who are making the jump to entrepreneurship are actually thinking, holy cow, I've spent my whole life. Look, I have a job. That job, any job that I get could be forever. It never is. It usually isn't, because that's the world we live in today. But there's this mindset of forever. Like, I'm going to stop, I'm going to do this, and that'll be it. But the reality is the world changes every 30, 60, 90 days. And we have to think in terms of that change. I think people don't think in terms of change enough fundamentally.
Yeah, that's true. But the cool thing about this, if you actually make this a habit, working like this, it's actually also something for employees. If you want to do something on the side, a lot of people think, oh my goodness, I really want to be an entrepreneur, but do I really want to quit my day job? And therefore I don't have time, or I don't have the money. You don't have to do that. It's totally okay to start something on the side, because you're only going to do it for a certain time, for a certain amount of hours per day, and only for 90 days. And then you will see, is the direction that this thing is going. Is it like this, or is it more like this, or is it even going down? And when you see that there is success, then you can still determine after these 90 days, will it be worth eventually canceling the job that I'm currently in and going full on entrepreneur or not?
So who are the core types of people that you're looking at in the masterclass? Who does it benefit the most?
Well, it's a Wing Chun masterclass. It is particularly for people who are interested in self-defense. It's a self-defense masterclass, the one that I'm talking about right now. So those are usually adults. Those are usually people who have an interest in being able to defend themselves and being fit and healthy. Yeah, it's pretty much what it is. If you don't have interest in the martial arts, then it would be hard to be part of that group, obviously.
So in terms of working with businesses and business owners, because you have, just a lot of, you're a keynote speaker, you do a lot of things that are helpful for businesses. If a person connect with you, how does that happen?
Yeah, that's a different story. So there are these two things, these two projects that I'm juggling. One is the martial arts thing, and the other one is the business coach, if you will, and keynote speaker. I usually teach sales teams. I usually teach people who go outside and who have to be aggressive and who have to stay motivated and have to go full throttle. These are the people that I usually work with, but also startups, people who are just beginning that journey and who are unsure how to take those first few steps. And is this really the right kind of thing? These simple exercises alone will give you so much clarity. And there are so many techniques that you can use that makes it just so much easier to take these first steps. So usually sales teams and people who are looking to become entrepreneurs with their startup, these are usually the people that I work with as far as the corporate space is concerned.
That's amazing. So tell us about the last 9 months for you. You created this Wing Chun masterclass. How are you spending your time?
The last 9 months were very interesting for us. We are right here in Germany at the moment. We're facing a second lockdown, and so it's far from over here. I'm really we'll see what January will bring, but I sensed that something was going on. So when the government called out the first lockdown, we already had an online academy going, which is video streams where people can just download the videos and watch them. But from one day to the other, all of a sudden, we had to close all the 25 schools that we have over here in Germany, and we had to come up with a solution. So what we did within one day was to create a YouTube channel, and I sent out a message to all of my school owners and told them, guys, I need all of you to provide me with 15 videos in which you teach a couple of techniques and drills and just a class. And then we uploaded that stuff on YouTube, and we were able to throw out one video every day to our members. We were super lucky. We were super lucky that a lot of them it was under 5% that people wanted their money back, or that they contacted us and told us that they were being laid off and therefore would not be able to pay their monthly dues. But I think it's also part because we had this YouTube channel. Then we started doing live streams every Tuesday, every Thursday for 2 hours, for 3 hours actually, for children, youth, and for adults. We have an instructor standing behind me. You may be able to see the photo studio that we have here, or film studio, and we do those live streams there. Throw it out. Today we just had 500 and something people join and actually train. So you have moms with their children holding pillows that they use as pads, or you have a couple or brothers and sisters working with each other, which is amazing to me to see how they do it. That was another thing. Started a self-defense masterclass for people who are generally interested in self-defense. You can view that on selfdefensemasterclass.com. Started my Wing Chun masterclass, wtmasterclass.com. And I heavily increased my speeches online, where I went to talk to the embodiment conference in England, for example, or just a variety of events that were taking place online. I started to gather my instructors for brunches. So I told them, hey guys, we're going to have school owner brunches. So on that particular day, I want you guys to get your notepad and your breakfast, and then just sit in front of the computer screen with us, and we just talk about what's going on right now, what we can do to make it better, and so we can learn from each other. So there's so much going on online related. Very interesting time for me right now.
Tell us a little bit about the Sifu in your name. Tell us where that originates.
It just means teacher. It's it's a title that we use in the Chinese martial arts, particularly in Kung Fu, and it means father teacher. So it's somebody who's been teaching for quite a while. That's pretty much what it means.
Awesome. And what does it look like? What does the world look like for you in 2021? What are you going to focus on? I imagine it's the masterclass. What do you want to happen in 2021 for you and your businesses?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to if COVID is going to be around much longer or not. But I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to fly again. Normally, every second week, I board a plane to some country to do my seminars, and I thoroughly enjoy doing that. Spend a lot of time in the U.S. I spend a lot of time over here in Germany. We're at beautiful Heckhausen Castle in Solingen over here. It's really, really nice. So we're at a good place where it's okay to sit for 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 hours every day and work, but I'm really looking forward to getting back on the road and hopefully touching a lot of people, both physically and mentally, with what we do.
And as you think about, as we wrap up, when you think about businesses and entrepreneurs moving into 2021, what are some words of wisdom that you can share with us from the accumulation of your knowledge, the Chinese martial arts? What's a parting gift that you can share with us about how we should be thinking about business in 2021?
I would just like to repeat those principles that I said in the beginning of the interview, and you may want to jot those down if you do have a pen and paper somewhere. The first one is, if the way is clear, go forward. Don't hesitate. Don't wait. If you see that there's an opportunity that's presenting itself, then go for it. If it's something that's constructive, that's positive, that could be a chance for you to move ahead. That's the first one. The second one is, if you encounter resistance, stick. Resistance sometimes is there for a reason. And the resistance could be a mistake that you make, could be something that happens to you that you have to learn from. But it's also something that you should touch and that you should see. What does it look like? How is it structured? And where are the gaps? First of all, what can I learn from it? And secondly, is there a way around it? Is there a way over it? Is there a way under it? Is there a way around it? Tony Robbins likes to talk about the ant strategy, when he talks about an ant trying to get around an obstacle, and he says the ant keeps trying until it dies. And I kind of like this analogy. You're not supposed to die trying, but I think it helps to get up again and try it again. The third one is, if the resistance is too strong, yield. It's not always smart to just go forward like crazy and closing your eyes while you do this. Keep your eyes open and see if there may be other ways, other opportunities, or other clusters. Maybe you just have to shift one component of what you're doing in order to get that success that you want. Maybe not everything is wrong, despite the fact that you are facing a strong wind right now. Maybe it's just one thing that you have to tweak in order to go to get to your goal. And then the fourth one, if the opponent retreats, follow. So when this gap opens itself, go forward and market, and make sure that you touch as many people as possible with your product or services.
Sifu, Thommy, Luke, Boehlig, writer and author, world-renowned martial artist, keynote speaker, and instructor of military and police units. Thank you. A lot going on. This is really cool. I appreciate this. We have your websites scrolling below. We have sifuthommy.com, wingsjun.com, and wt-masterclass.com for anyone who's interested. I definitely recommend you check them out. Fan-freaking-tastic. This was great, Thommy. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the LA Business Podcast. If you like what we're doing on this podcast, please consider subscribing on Apple or Google Play, leaving a 5-star review, and sharing with your friends. If you have any questions, comments, or recommendations for a guest you'd like to hear on this podcast, please email me, robert@brillmedia.co. Thank you. Have a fantastic day.